Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today we have a Tier 6 domination battle here on the ring map, starring Ghostrider in the French Tier 6 battleship slash battle cruiser, the Dunker Q. What? What do you mean it's pronounced Dunkirk? Look, if they want me to pronounce it Dunkirk, they shouldn't have spelled it Dunker Q, should they? That's on the French, not me. Bloody French coming around here, naming their own ships as if they own them or something. I mean, the nerve of the people. What's going on? Right, anyway, as you can see, this is the Dunker Q Black, because only Wargaming can figure out a way of selling you the same premium ship twice. It's not a great ship. I mean, it's not terrible either, but it definitely... I mean, it's fast. Well, okay, it's not particularly fast, but by the standards of Tier 5 and 6 battleships, it's an absolute speed demon. Oh, look at the dispersion on those shots. Yeah, that's the other thing about the Dunker Q. It's not got the most accurate guns in the game. There are Gneisenau captains watching this thinking, wow, my shit's not that bad after all. The good thing about the guns is they are all in the front, which means that you don't have to... I mean, you often see battleships that have got guns all over the place, and they're often tempted to expose way too much broadside, far more than is safe, in order to get all the guns firing. You never have that problem with a Dunker Q, because all the guns are in the front. You can just nose in, tank all of that incoming fire on your bows, but you have to be careful, because the Dunker Q's bow plating is only 26mm thick, which is standard for Tier 6 battleships. But 26mm of bow and stern plating can be overmatched by 15-inch or 380mm guns. You can bounce, if sufficiently angled, 14-inch armor-piercing shells. Now, because, once again, the replay's bugged, I don't actually know what's on the enemy team, but I'm reasonably confident that there's nothing with 16-inch or even 15-inch guns. I mean, there might be, if there's a Queen Elizabeth class battleship with 15-inch guns, or maybe a Mutsu with 16-inch guns, or a Renown or a Repulse, again with 15-inch guns. They can overmatch your bow plating. But the majority of battleships here at Tier 6 maximum have 14-inch guns. New Yorks, New Mexicos, Fusos, Congos, things like that. Not the Dunker Q though. It doesn't even have 14-inch guns. These things are just 330mm, so he's not going to be overmatching anything, with the possible exception of some of the light cruisers. Speaking of which, light cruiser, enemy Königsberg, an extremely brave enemy Königsberg, way braver than he has any right to be. Quick note about the matchmaking, by the way, this is basically all battleships and destroyers. I mean, yes, there's a carrier, yes, there's a submarine, because of course there's a carrier and a submarine, but there's only 2 cruisers on each side, and they're both light cruisers. And if you're in a light cruiser in this kind of matchmaking and you get spotted, that's the game's way of saying, run away, run away. The exact opposite of what he's doing. And something that the T-22 over there should have been doing long before now. He's just gotten spanked within an inch of his life. He started to turn away and then he decided to turn in and continue. Oh, well, it's his funeral. And it absolutely is his funeral. He's dead. But check out the Königsberg. Now, initially, Ghostrider had the high explosive loaded because he only has 330mm guns and there's lots of battleships and destroyers to be shot at, but with a light cruiser up there, he's definitely reloading the armor piercing. Now, Ghostrider was absolutely robbed here. He should be demanding a refund on those 330mm armor piercing shells, because the Königsberg as a light cruiser, I think, only has 13mm of bow plating, and even a heavy cruiser can punch through that like a hot knife through butter, so that should have been a frontal citadel and a kill. But then the Königsberg, I mean, he's not making it difficult, is he? This will be to get his torpedoes away. Torpedoes which, of course, have absolutely no chance of hitting anything because Ghostrider's hidden behind that spit of land. And if the Königsberg had just not made that approach and continued going to the right of the screen, there's an island over there he could have hid behind, he would have survived. Or even after committing to that approach, once he'd weathered that initial armor-piercing salvo on the bows, if he just turned to the left, there's a perfectly good island right there that he could have hidden behind. And Ghostrider wouldn't have chased him around the corner either, because there's the torpedo threat, not just from the Königsberg, but also the enemy Nicholas. I mean, it's true that the Texas down to the south could possibly have scored a hit on him. But the Texas had just fired, and a small chance of survival is better than no chance whatsoever, which is exactly what happened when the Königsberg chose violence. Light cruisers, stop being so brave. Or maybe he just looked at the matchmaking and said, nah, fuck this. Let's get this over and done with as quickly as possible. You never know. Right, now remember, there is a destroyer back there. And it's American, as you can tell by the size of that massive smokescreen. So Ghostrider is in no rush to actually poke out around the side of that island, because there will be torpedoes coming, and the Dunker Q has absolutely terrible utility. It's got a heel, it's got a spotter aircraft, and that's it. No hydro, no radar, nothing. Oh, there's the enemy carrier. Yep, sure enough, there are the torpedoes. 100% predictable. Now, the problem, of course, with the Dunker Q having all of its guns in the front is that it doesn't have any guns in the... Oh, Citadel on the carrier. Can anybody finish him off? Can anybody finish... Nobody's going to finish him off. He's going to go undetected. Yeah, there it is. All right, never mind. That was kind of lucky and kind of unlucky at the same time. I mean, only one shot hit, but holy shit, did it hit. And there's the Nicholas. I don't know what it is about enemy ships choosing violence when they really, really shouldn't, but the Nicholas is about to do it as well. Now, Ghostrider is basically broadside on to a whole bunch of battleships over there, and they may only have 14-inch guns, but when you're broadside on with only 225mm of belt armour, yeah, turn away. And he has the perfect opportunity here to do exactly that, while at the same time exposing the Nicholas to all of the secondaries on the back of the Dunker Q. And yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Dunker Q's secondaries are pretty bad, but, well, they didn't need to be pretty good under those circumstances. He's turned away from the battleships, and the short-range torpedoes on the Nicholas were never going to catch him. Unfortunately for the Nicholas, he chose violence when he really should have chosen caution. It's not all great news for Ghostrider, though, because, with the exception of the Gallant, who's trying to sneak around up to the north, he's the only ship left alive over here. And the Gallant's way too far away to directly be able to help him, so while he continues to take those 14-inch armour-piercing shells from the Fuso on his belt, he doesn't even have the luxury of hoping that they shoot at somebody else, because there's nobody else over here for them to shoot at. Carrier got spotted again. Unfortunately, there's nobody really in a position to shoot at it. He starts aiming up at the New York. That's actually a reasonable salvo. He's using the high explosive again. You could argue that maybe he should have switched to the armour-piercing, but the high explosive is getting the job done. I mean, there's a lot to not like about the Dunker Q. It's got bad secondaries, it's got bad armour, its guns aren't great, but it does have good high explosive shells. I mean, they're not really good high explosive shells. It's not a British battleship. Oh, the AA is terrible as well. Even by the standards of World of Warships. It's pretty bad. He clearly pissed off the carrier with that Citadel earlier, so the carrier's thinking, right, my turn, there's one strike. Let's just see how good his AA is. Oh, look, he shot an aircraft down. Let's just see how much difference that makes. As the Fuso and the New York now both targeted, here come the torpedo bombers again. So it's managed to get one strike off. Now here comes the second strike. Right. Takes another torpedo. Only has 27% torpedo damage reduction as well, by the way. He's got a fire on the New York. New York's missed him again. More shots out. And he's pretty well angled, but here comes the torpedo attack aircraft. Even in a game where the surface ships have terrible AA, the Dunker Q's AA is pretty special. He's now close enough to the New York, and yes, that's a New Mexico down there, and a New York and a Fuso over there, but he's switching to the armour-piercing, because, I mean, if the New York's going to show him a broadside at that kind of range, he's going to oblige him. And honestly, I mean, that was kind of unlucky. He manages to mostly avoid the Fuso's return salvo. That New Mexico, however, I mean, he's sandwiched between 3 enemy battleships. Fortunately, the New Mexico is paying him no attention whatsoever, and the New York just seems like he wants to die. Continuing to give a nice big flat broadside, all 8 of the guns And again, he gets... Oh, seriously? I mean, come on. Good news, bad news situation here. The Gallant did kill the carrier, but that doesn't mean the carrier can't still attack him. Because what fun would that be? Fortunately, the Ranger misses. The New York survives long enough to get one further high explosive salvo off, and then he's dead too. And of course it's a citadel, when he didn't actually need a citadel, just a single regular armor-piercing penetration would have done. That's what we call a pitadel, a pity citadel. You can see why the New Mexico's ignoring him though, he's focusing on the friendly carrier. Speaking of carriers, yeah, there it is. Enemy carrier died like nearly a minute ago, but he's still attacking him, because of course he is. And the enemy New Mexico has just sunk the friendly Ranger, which means that Ghostrider is now sandwiched between a New Mexico and a Fuso. However, the New Mexico continues to ignore him. It's as if he's activated as somebody else's problem field, or in this case, the Fuso's problem. And the Fuso is being smart. He's not showing broadside. He's just using the two front turrets and chipping away. Under these circumstances, probably would have been better loading the high explosive himself. Maybe set a double fire, take advantage of Ghostrider being on fire with his damage control on cooldown, but it's here where the Fuso gives in to temptation. He's turning to get the other turrets firing as well, and Ghostrider has loaded the armor piercing. And they may only be 330mm guns with questionable accuracy, but at this range, they're good enough. There goes the Fuso. Now as Ghostrider turns the ship around, he is given a big fat broadside to the New Mexico over there. And you'd think that in the at least a minute since that New Mexico sank the friendly carrier, he's had more than enough time to turn his admittedly very slow turning turret around and assist his teammate in the Fuso against Ghostrider here in the Dunker Q, but apparently no, he's got better things to do. I mean, he's sitting in the cap circle, and since he's not he hasn't paid any attention to Ghostrider since the second he was spotted. And I'm sure Ghostrider is entirely happy to take advantage of that and reset his capture progress. He's switching to the high explosive now, as the New Mexico continues to ignore him. Is it worth pointing out that, I mean, I can't see the health bar of the Fuso that he's shooting at, who's currently engaged in close combat with the enemy Iron Duke. But Ghostrider has less than 10,000 health, with his heal on cooldown. Now at some point they're probably going to sink that Fuso. Oh, the friendly cachalot has just sunk the enemy cachalot, so there are 4 ships against 2. And, you know, as long as... I mean, as long as the New Mexico is focusing down the Fuso, I'm sure Ghostrider isn't going to complain. And of course, the closer he gets, the more accurate these guns are. And the more of these high explosive shells are going to hit. Okay, they have sunk the Fuso. The Iron Duke got him. Now then, New Mexico. And there's another fire. And yes, your damage control's on cooldown. And just look at how slow this guy's turrets are. And imagine, since the Iron Duke sank the Fuso anyway, we don't know how much help was provided by the New Mexico here, but the New Mexico's guns are kind of shit, and it is at extreme range, so I'm going to guess not much. Imagine if that New Mexico had instead assisted the Fuso against Ghostrider. And look at how many shots. In fact, his heal is now off cooldown and he's used it. And look at how many shots on target Ghostrider is getting while that New Mexico tries to react to the fact that there's been an enemy battleship on his flank for the last 4 minutes that sank one of his teammates and is now nickel and diming him to death. Oh, and he switched to the armor piercing now because the range is good, and it is just a New Mexico. I mean, it's tier 6 as well, but its armor is kind of bad. And look at how slowly these turrets are turning, man. Oh, he's managed to get the rear turrets firing, and that's actually done some damage. Gee, if only that had happened when Ghostrider was on less than 10,000 health. But it didn't, and that's the Kraken Unleashed. That, of course, just leaves the enemy Iron Duke, who's definitely been punching above his weight in this fight. Manages to claim his second kill, but then somebody smacks him and leaves him on less than 200 health, and is probably raging that they didn't get the kill there. And these may not be the most accurate or large caliber guns in the world, but, well, it's only going to take 1 hit. And that's kill number 6. So that's 6 kills, Kraken Unleashed, high caliber, Witherer, Confederate. I'm missing something. Oh yes, Close Quarters Expert Award. For Ghostrider in the French Tier 6, not actually very good battleship, the Dunkerque. Remember kids, it's not what you got, it's how you use it. Also, the enemy team mostly ignoring you and choosing violence when they really should have chosen caution. I mean, that certainly doesn't hurt your chances either. So, congratulations, Ghostrider. I hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.